Hello everybody, welcome to the Clearview channel. Today is all about part 3 in our 6-part series on motivational interviewing. Our last episode was about the spirit of motivational interviewing. It was about 4 components of it. Number 1 is partnership, seeing the person in front of you as the expert. It's hard to do, but very important. The second part is acceptance. If you can't lead with an acceptance mindset, motivational interviewing is not going to work for you. Third, it is about compassion and empathy. Having compassion and empathy, being curious about the person in front of you. Lastly, it's about evocation, which is kind of a complicated word, but to me it means creating safety around those change opportunities that are available for the person in front of you. That's the spirit of motivational interviewing. Today we're going to jump into the 6 core principles of motivational interviewing. I'm joined again by my esteemed colleague, Steph Ray, licensed clinical social worker. All right, Steph, let's jump into the 6 core principles of motivational interviewing. What do our parents and grandparents and staff members and clinicians need to understand about these core principles?
Sure. So the first one is don't tell people what to do.
Yikes. I love doing that. But we know it doesn't work. So principle 1, don't tell people what to do. Okay?
Yep. And I've had a parent before ask, well, aren't I entitled to tell my daughter what to do? Don't I have that privilege? And I said, absolutely you do. And are you eliciting the change you want to see? What are the results of that?
Yeah, I would say, of course you do. How's that working out for you?
Absolutely.
Right. What's the second principle?
So the second one is listening.
Listening. That is a good reminder, right? Like, I know in Arbinger, we talk a little bit about not just listening, but can you listen just that much more? Can you actively and reflectively listen so that they actually believe and know you actually are curious about them?
Right.
Okay,
right.
Listening, second one. Yeah, what about the third one?
The third one is you allow the student to decide for themselves what it is they want to change.
Wow, that would be hard. Like, I would get impatient. Like, don't you see it? Don't you see you should stop self-harming? Don't you see you should stop doing drugs? Don't you see you should go to work on time, do your homework? How do you handle that? So you're saying that principle is let them tell you the change they believe they need.
Yes.
That's hard.
Yes. Yeah.
That's got to be the hardest one.
It could be.
Yeah.
And that's why, again, the spirit of motivational interviewing is so important, because that is the mindset and the mentality that we're going into it. Is, again, that's the number 1. We have to collaborate with them. We are not the expert, and we're not imposing what we want for them onto them. We're eliciting it from them.
Got it. And so that also goes to the second part of the spirit of motivational interviewing, which is acceptance. I have to accept that they are going to take their own pace to discovering the change they need.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, what about the 4th principle?
The 4th principle is cognitive dissonance.
Whoa, that sounds real technical. What does cognitive dissonance mean?
Essentially, it's just that your words and your actions aren't aligning.
Makes sense. So if I have a value of, say, being Christ-centered, and yet I behave differently than that value, I need to be aware of that principle. Makes sense. Okay. Yeah. And the 5th principle? The
5th principle is that people need to feel confident in order to change.
Right, so I have a role in helping them feel confident. You mentioned affirmations in an earlier episode. So using affirmations to create that, no matter what the baby step is, like affirm their growth. Okay,
yeah.
Makes sense. And what about the 6th core principle, the last one?
Is that acknowledging that ambivalence is normal.
Ambivalence. So they are in control of their progress. I have to accept that their progress is their own. And most importantly, that's why I mentioned the 4 agreements, I'm not going to take their lack of progress personally. Because I have to tell you, in the past, I get impatient. Like, don't you see it? Don't you see what you're doing is hurting you? And I tap out because I get frustrated. You're saying that process, that progress is not mine, it's theirs.
Right.
And it's normal.
Yeah, and there's going to be resistance in change. It can be scary. And so that hesitation that the individual might have is okay, and it is normal. And instead of feeling resistant to that, or trying to really write it or impose our perspective or our beliefs or our agenda on it, it's using that as another type of intervention.
Makes sense. Thank you, Steph. That's really good stuff. Stay tuned for our next episode. It's important in motivational interviewing to understand the stages of change. And Steph's going to walk us through exactly what it is and where motivational interviewing can play its biggest part. Stay tuned.